Hello all. Thanks for coming. Today I'll be presenting our work, Beyond the Gates, an empirical analysis of HTTP managed password stealers and operators. This is a joint collaboration between Georgia Tech and the security vendor MalBeacon. In a recent report about data breaches, Verizon found out that the primary way for cybercriminals in order to initially infiltrate into organization is the use of stolen credentials. Even worse in web-based application attacks, the use of stolen credentials reaches an 86%, dwarfing other methods such as exploiting vulnerabilities. This highlights how important these stolen credentials are for cybercriminals, as well as how effective these cybercriminals are into stealing these credentials. One of the major ways for the cybercriminals to steal these credentials, aside from phishing, is by the use of password or information stealers that are aimed into stealing these user credentials, and they can range from usernames and password, for example, stored in the web browser, down to cookies and remote access keys. Lately, we have seen that this problem is rising and persisting, with reports stating from 2020 that they have risen 60%, and still new reports are coming. Inspired by prior work in spam, underground economies, and phishing, that had significant impact and led us to build better defensive as a community, we seek to do the same by analyzing parts of the password stealing ecosystem that are not largely measured. The ecosystem of password stealing is complicated. The stolen credentials are circulated into underground forums and marketplaces, but before they make it there, password stealing operators utilizing malware in the choice of the command and controls steal these credentials of unsuspected users. One of the most fundamental parts of this ecosystem is that of the relationship between the operators with the command and control infrastructure, as they are the main ones that fuel the underground forums and marketplaces with these credentials. Aside from that, they share roles and relationships with each other that are not widely understood by the community. In our work, we seek to understand and measure this part of this ecosystem by answering main questions such as what tactics do the operators employ, what are their roles and relationships, how profitable are they, and lastly, how effective are we in detecting them. In order to understand the roles, we see that the cybercriminals using password stealers can be developers writing the code and choosing to sell it or open source it. For example, we see Amadeus Stealer being sold for $600. They could be service providers that they could take this source code and provision it and sell it to other cybercriminals. For example, we see Agent Tesla being sold for $12 to other operators. And the operators are the last part of the chain that they're the ones that run these password stealing operations. A cybercriminal can be more sophisticated, assuming all the roles, while other less sophisticated could just be based on the service providers to get this malware. Thus, we find that the stealers market is very mature and competitive, with many different offerings ranging from $12 to $600. And we see that the entry barrier into this ecosystem is very low, both technically and financially, as an operator can just pay $12 and have no experience in malware to just get started. We collaborate with MalBeacon, who is running infected honey traps and sandboxes. And as these sandboxes get infected by password stealers, they send their data, the fake sandbox data, back to the command and control. When the operator tries to access this command and control, a pixel that is on the data gets rendered into their web browser and sent an HTTP callback back to a pixel server owned by MalBeacon that sends back a cookie and let us track the operator as they conduct their campaigns. This is an example of a panel that the operator uses from the operator perspective, and the infected honey trap of MalBeacon can appear as just one of these infections. Our dataset spans 20 months, includes over 200,000 HTTP callbacks, and we have seen over 5,000 cookies assigned to these password stealer operators. We have 10 different password stealer malware families, and among the top of these families are popular password stealers such as Lockybot and Formbook. We also utilize active and passive DNS datasets in order to characterize the command and control infrastructure, as well as see the targets of these operations. Additionally, we utilize threat intelligence to find out the families of the command and control panels, as well as to detect the detection lag of the community. Looking at how these operations are being conducted, we see that the command and control panels are provisioned very fast, within 2 weeks after new password stealer domain registration. And after that, we see that the community is lagging on average 64 days to detect these command and control panels, highlighting how ample of advantage the operators have to infect more users. Looking at when the operators stop to access their panels, we see that almost 70% of them stop within 30 days after detection, highlighting how important this detection event is to stop these operations more promptly. Now, our data set gives us the advantage to look at the IPs of the operators conducting this campaign. And this could give us some insights on how international law enforcement agencies can better provision their resources into addressing this threat. However, despite the common wisdom of this low sophistication of such operation, we see that many of the password stealer operations are utilizing VPNs and proxies, making the work of law enforcement harder. For example, in our top IPs that we observe in our data set that are coming from Nigeria, almost 50% of the IPs are listed in previous academic work on mobile and residential proxies, highlighting how more sophisticated operators are using these IPs in order to trick law enforcement. Lastly, we see that the operators are mostly active during weekdays, suggesting that they are doing this operation as a full-time job. Looking at the targets of these operations, most of them comes from hosting networks associated with VPNs, and also we see a lot of them coming from ISPs and residential networks. But the most interesting targets are coming from United States and are located into business and governmental networks. Among the top targets are the Social Security Administration of the US, the United States House of Representatives, and the Senate of the United States. We have reported these findings with law enforcement. Now, trying to see how these operations are conducting and who is a service provider and who is just an operator, we're creating a bipartite graph, and we're doing a component analysis in order to create clusters of activities between their panels and their operators. We see that in each of the top 25 largest clusters, there is 1 to 2 operators that have most access to all the panels and the most of the activities, highlighting that they're master accounts or service providers. These master or service providers accounts are the top 1% in the activities of all of our data set. Now, trying to understand how many new subscriptions are coming into these service providers, we look at the top 5 clusters, and we see that on average, there are 5 new subscriptions every week into this cluster. However, the subscriptions are not uniform. Trying to understand the profit of these service provider cybercriminals before they sell the credentials, we see that they can enjoy high profit margin from more than 90%. And these profit margins can range from $2,000 to $11,000 per month. Concluding, we know that password stealers is a rising and persisting threat. And one of the main reasons we have found that this is happening in our study is the low technical and financial entry barrier into the ecosystem, enabling less experienced operators to come in. the detection lag of the community, averaging 64 days, and lastly, the financial incentives of operators to sell panel accesses to other cybercriminals in order to earn more money. We believe that the security community has to pay more attention and allocate more research into this threat, as the stolen credentials are the primary way for other cybercriminals to infiltrate into organizations. And one way that this can happen is by developing new internet and tailored to this problem wide scanning techniques to identify password command and control panels that are open to the internet faster. For the purposes of repeatability, we have released 6 months of our dataset along with some of our code available on our GitHub. And I suggest you to look our paper for more detailed takeaways. Thank you.